Hello everyone, my name is Tang Mengying. My major is International Management and Design Innovation. The topic of my project is Cultural Economy, how to revival the urban tourism industry after the COVID-19. And based on the desk research in the previous stage, I have a certain understanding of the types and quantity of existing tourism resource in Glasgow. Reading the Tourism Development Plan 2023 by the City Council, I understand the future development direction on the city's tourism, among which the main development directions mentioned are heritage, art, music, and Macintosh. Therefore, at this stage, I finished the case study and compared Glasgow with other similar tourist cities to analyze their competitive priority in developing tourism industry. After that, I conducted interviews and questionnaires and summarized my findings. Based on these conclusions, I created a persona, drew a customer journal map, and a storyboard for this persona. Finally, I will try to find the tourism direction suitable for Glasgow development. By comparing the two cities in England and Scotland, it is concluded that Glasgow's urban positioning as a base to explore the Highland can help it get a competitive priority when competing with London, where a large number of museums and Macintosh can help it get a leading when compared with Edinburgh. In the next step, I will discuss whether these are the listed advantages of Glasgow have been cut, and I will analyze whether there are some undiscovered resource that can be used as a new touch point for Glasgow development of tourism industry. First, I create questionnaires. By answering my questions, I found that although Glasgow has always emphasized that they own Macintosh, people who have been here are not impressed by Macintosh. Most people know that this city is still due to the University of Glasgow. According to the collected information, I interviewed 3 groups of people. And the first person I interviewed, a student majoring in tourism, and is now working as a hotel manager. She mentioned that as a developing tourism city, especially the large-scale sport event will be held soon. The number of existing hotel rooms near city center Glasgow is difficult to meet this demand, and at present, the city lacks of representative landmarks. She mentioned that according to the current development situation, the city did not make good use of the cultural resource of Macintosh and the natural resource of River Clyde. The second person I interviewed is a travel enthusiast. When I asked him how to choose which city to travel to, he mentioned that whether there are enough local attractions to attract him is his main consideration, and followed by whether there are unique handicrafts or brands in the local area that cannot be bought in other places. Regarding the choice of accommodation, he will mainly consider the brand hotel worth expressing, such as the Atlantis Hotel or some Airbnbs with local characteristics. The third interview is Asian tourists who have traveled to Glasgow. The survey found that those tourists are mainly the University of Glasgow students and their parents. Before going to studying here, only a few people know about this city. They point out that there is a lack of delicious local food. In the communication, she mentioned that the most impressive attraction was the main building of University of Glasgow. She and her parents didn't spend too much time visiting museums. After completing all the questionnaires and interviews, I found that tourists from different geographical areas sometimes have different feedback on the same question. For example, tourists from some European regions point out that Glasgow is a city with rich nightlife, which is full of vitality and can eat delicious food from all over the world. However, most Asian tourists respond that it is a relatively old city with almost no nightlife, and they don't know what to do in this city after 5 p.m. So based on the collected data, I made a SWOT analysis of Glasgow. Through the SWOT analysis, it is found that Glasgow's existing advantages have always been the product of Macintosh and his design, but it has not been well displayed. If this advantage is brought into play, the weakness of no landmark building will be solved. In addition, after interviews, I found that the River Clyde has not been well used by Glasgow. In the early city, this river was used when developing the shipbuilding industry, but it was ignored when developing tourism. Through the above analysis, I set up a persona trying to explain the problem I found. I created a persona named Julie Britton, a 22-year-old girl who liked architecture and a photographer. She also liked to share her life with social media. Because of the opportunity of European Football Championship in 2020, she chose to travel to Glasgow. I listed Glasgow and Julie's touch point at different stages, analyzed her possible move and the reason for these moves, and finally put forward possible solution and development opportunities. This story describes the day after Julie arrived at Glasgow. When there was no competition schedule, she took her camera and prepared to take a lot of photos about Macintosh design. She looked up the information on the internet and found out that Glasgow was the hometown of Macintosh. Where there was his most famous design is Glasgow School of Art. Although it was burned down, she still wants to see it. These places are a little far from her hotel. Finally, when she visited the whole city, she found that it was hard to feel the element of Macintosh. Although she took some photos, she was still very disappointed. Based on this story, I put forward the possible future development direction of tourism industry in this city. I propose to build a Macintosh-themed building along the River Clyde to make it a landmark. Building a Macintosh-themed hotel instead of a museum. Decorate the hotel with furniture designed by him. The hotel or museum could provide activities that can make people feel the enthusiasm of local residents, such as Scottish dance, so as to establish a unique competitive priority. Decorate Glasgow with elements designed by Macintosh to unify the urban style. And build a nightlife area along the River Clyde in line with Asian tourism form. Different advertisements can be used to attract tourists from different regions. Now, I have finished the second stage of desk research, and I have completed the first stage of interview and questionnaires, and put forward a preliminary plan about the development directions. In the next stage, I will continue to conduct the desk research and interviews to evaluate the rationality of the solution and improve the solution according to the suggestion. Finally, this is the video I find when I conducted desk research in the second stage, which is one of the reasons why I chose Macintosh as the main body of cultural economy.
And here we are, at the very heart of Glasgow, by the Clyde, the river that gave Glasgow its identity, its pulse, its history, its future. And it's a desolate wasteland of the most incompetent architectural carbuncles. These are homes for people, and they just look like bits of space junk that have been deposited here. This is the Glasgow style of today, and I think Charles Rennie Mackintosh would have been deeply disappointed. How would he have felt looking down on what's become of his masterpiece today? What a scene of absolute trauma. During Mackintosh's lifetime and in the years that followed his death, he genuinely was Glasgow's neglected genius. And when, eventually, we all learnt to love him, he brought great riches to this city in terms of merchandising sales, tourist revenues, taxes, and international prestige. Well, now, in my opinion, it's time to repay that favour. It's time to show our faith in the future of Charles Rennie Mackintosh. Glasgow is full of architectural wonders, but the Glasgow School of Art was our jewel. And I hope and pray that in the years and decades that are coming, this ruin can be the site of our greatest artistic achievement, that we can rebuild his masterpiece, that we can rediscover those lost skills and crafts and the imaginative freedom that Mackintosh embodied, that we can once again proudly entrust to our children his architectural legacy, and that the Glasgow School of Art can truly be immortal.
That's all my presentation. Thank you.